Hey everyone! Welcome to Update X24H, your go-to channel for the latest news, hottest dramas, breaking stories, and all the buzz from the world of entertainment. We're here to keep you updated, entertained, and always in the loop. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing family, because here at Update X24H, we bring you the news that matters, the drama you love, and the stories you can't miss. Thanks for being part of our community. Let's stay connected, stay updated, and keep the good vibes rolling. What happens when truth becomes dangerous? When standing by a friend can cost you everything. In a world where fame can vanish overnight, the silence that followed Menglong's death was supposed to end the story. But it didn't. It only began a new one. A story written by courage, erased by fear, and remembered by millions. Tonight, we uncover how some of China's brightest stars refused to forget, and how their quiet rebellion still echoes across the world. When Menglong's name faded from the headlines, a different kind of story began to unfold. One written not by officials, but by those who still believed in truth. His death had left a silence so heavy that even the air seemed to mourn. Yet beneath that stillness, a quiet defiance was stirring among people who refused to accept the official ending. It was in the way candles appeared outside theaters at midnight, in the whisper of his name at film studios, in the eyes of those who had once shared a stage with him. The grief was real, but so was the courage to remember. In the weeks that followed, two figures stepped into that fragile space between mourning and resistance. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan did not hold press conferences or issue fiery statements. Instead, they stood together at a private memorial. No microphones, no cameras, just two silhouettes framed by the soft light of remembrance. For a moment, their silence spoke louder than any slogan ever could. It was a simple act, yet one that shook the walls of an industry built on compliance. Within hours, their names began to disappear from state-run media feeds. Partnership deals were suspended without explanation. Their images, once celebrated across billboards, faded from official channels as though they had never existed. But true conviction cannot be erased with a keystroke. Even as the algorithms buried their names, acts of humanity kept surfacing in quieter ways. Anonymous donations were made to Menglong's family through layers of intermediaries. Letters of condolence written in careful, untraceable handwriting found their way to his mother's doorstep. Those who had once worked beside him began to share fragments of memory disguised as casual anecdotes, coded enough to slip past censors yet tender enough for fans to recognize. It became a secret language of solidarity, one that existed in the margins of an increasingly watchful world. Behind the scenes, the pressure was relentless. Studios received warnings to avoid sensitive associations. Publicists were instructed to decline interviews or to change subjects when his name arose. Rumors of an unspoken blacklist spread like wildfire. Still, the quiet defiance continued. Fans created digital mosaics of his past performances, uploading and re-uploading them under altered titles to keep them alive online. For every post that vanished, another appeared moments later. It was as though the collective will of millions had decided that forgetting him was no longer an option. What began as mourning evolved into a test of loyalty, not to an individual, but to the very idea of truth itself. In those weeks after his death, the entertainment world learned how fragile freedom could be, and how powerful remembrance truly was. The light that once shone from Menglong's artistry had been dimmed, yet the shadows it cast revealed something unexpected. That even in the darkest corridors of silence, the human heart still finds ways to speak. What followed was not an explosion of chaos, but a quiet, calculated war. One fought not with weapons, but with silence, fear, and deletion. In the wake of Menglong's death, the rules of the game changed. Every word, every post, every glance carried risk. And in that suffocating air, those who dared to remember him became soldiers in an invisible battle for truth. Dylan Wang was among the first to cross the line. Known for his confidence and wit, he spoke during a live stream that was meant to be lighthearted. But somewhere between laughter and pause, he said something that couldn't be unsaid. He didn't fall. He was pushed. That sentence, brief but piercing, cut through the fog of denial like a blade. Within hours, the recording vanished. His studio issued an apology written in the language of obedience. His upcoming drama was quietly withdrawn. The official reason was scheduling conflict, but everyone understood what it really meant. As Dylan's voice was silenced, Shinyu chose another path. Her rebellion was softer, quieter. A single candle emoji posted on her social media with a line from one of Yu's favorite poems. Even in silence, the stars remember. It was a whisper of grief that spread faster than the platforms could contain. Millions of fans echoed her message across continents, only for it to vanish again under the weight of censorship. By the next morning, her account was restricted, her film press tour postponed, and her name scrubbed from trending lists. Yet for those who saw her post before it disappeared, that image of a candle lingered, a symbol of courage disguised as simplicity. Then there was Joseph Zung, who had always balanced professionalism with restraint. He never spoke about Yu in public, but one night, he was photographed leaving Yu's mother's apartment carrying a bouquet of white lilies. It was a quiet act of humanity, but in this new landscape, even kindness could be dangerous. The image went viral, sparking waves of admiration and warning in equal measure. Days later, his Weibo account went under maintenance. Soon after, a leaked audio clip began to circulate. A voice resembling Joseph saying, "You don't erase a man just because he saw something." Its authenticity was never confirmed, but it didn't need to be. The damage was already done. Behind these personal tragedies was a coordinated machinery of erasure. An algorithmic battlefield where truth and lies collided in silence. Entire fan groups disappeared overnight. Hashtags turned into empty searches. Accounts were deleted with messages that read violation of community guidelines. Yet each time the authorities deleted one post, 3 more emerged from new accounts, anonymous and determined. Fans across Asia, Europe, and America began sharing encrypted folders, archiving screenshots, interviews, and every trace of Yu Menglong that survived. They called themselves the Keepers. It became clear that this was no longer about one man's death, but about memory itself. The invisible war was not fought on streets but in minds, between those who accepted forgetting as safety, and those who believed remembrance was resistance. And though many had been silenced, their echoes remained, weaving through networks and whispers, reminding the world that even when voices are taken, truth has its own way of surviving. By the time the dust began to settle, the world had changed. What started as grief had grown into something larger, something living. A quiet revolution built on memory. They tried to erase Yu Menglong's name from screens, from headlines, from history itself. But the more they deleted, the more people remembered. Memory became a rebellion, whispered across continents and encoded in art, sound, and movement. It was no longer about one man's death. It was about the right to remember that he had lived. Across the cities that had once celebrated him, traces began to return in unexpected forms. In Seoul, students at an art academy projected his image onto blank walls, not as an act of protest, but as a declaration that truth could not be pixelated away. In Tokyo, small galleries displayed empty frames labeled only with his initials, inviting visitors to imagine the face that could no longer be shown. Paris lit its bridges with a soft white glow for one night in November, a silent tribute that needed no translation. In Bangkok, dancers choreographed a piece called The Last Light, each step a translation of pain into beauty. It was art as defiance, delicate but unyielding. Meanwhile, far from the public eye, the digital resistance found its pulse. A collective of fans and journalists built an online archive known as For You. It was not just a website but a sanctuary for fragments, deleted interviews, blurred photos, and half-finished scripts. Within weeks, millions visited it, contributing files, translations, and memories. Each upload was a quiet act of defiance, a statement that if they erase him, we will rewrite him. Governments could block domains, but they couldn't block devotion. The archive multiplied across servers in Europe, America, and Southeast Asia, surviving every attempt to shut it down. For those who had once stood beside him, Wang Yibo, Xiaozhan, Dylan Wang, Shinyu, Joseph Sung, their silence became part of the story. Whether by choice or by force, their absence spoke louder than words. Rumors whispered that Wang Yibo had relocated to Vietnam, working under a pseudonym on a documentary about censorship and compassion. Xiaozhan, some said, quietly funded legal aid for Yu's mother, ensuring she would never fight alone. Shinyu's voice, once erased, resurfaced months later in a leaked audio clip. Soft, steady, and resolute. "They can take our work," she said, "but they can't take what we remember." Whether the recording was genuine or not, Its message resonated across borders. And that is how the rebirth of memory began, not through rebellion but through remembrance. People realized that remembrance itself is resistance. The more they tried to extinguish his light, the brighter it shone in reflection. Menglong's story stopped being a tragedy and became a testament, a reminder that truth once spoken cannot die. It transforms, it hides, it travels across languages, through hearts, through time. And somewhere in a small hidden studio, a single light still burns. It flickers quietly, but refuses to go out, because as long as someone remembers, the story continues. Months later, a foreign investigator claimed to hold files proving the cover-up. But even before any evidence surfaced, the truth was already alive in the hearts of millions. The people had become the archive. Menglong's name now stands not only for tragedy, but for remembrance, for every artist who dares to feel, speak, and stand when silence is safer. As one fan wrote beneath a candlelit video, "They took his voice but they gave us ours." And maybe that's what the system didn't expect, that the more you erase, the clearer the memory becomes. If this story moved you, remember, truth survives when we keep talking about it. Subscribe to our channel, share this video, and help us keep stories like Menglong's alive. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for being part of a community that believes memory is stronger than silence. Because here together we remember, and we won't be erased.